Hi there guys, so this is the new tutorial on how to paint model horse eyes. I have gotten this request many times, so I'm going to show you guys what you need and how we're going to get started. So of course you're going to need your model, that means his eyes done. You're going to need several colors. We're going to be doing brown eyes in this tutorial, but what you're going to need is you're either going to need to make your brown, or you may be able to find it at the store. Brown eyes on a horse are usually burnt umber, which is kind of like almost a reddish brown color if you want to go with that. But I don't have burnt umber, so I have a darker brown. You're also going to need black, white, and if you need to lighten up your white, or not your white, brown, or if you need to darken it, depending, you can also get this. It's let's see what color this is. This is a. It's kind of like a, almost like a, what, light brown, I'd call it, maybe? I don't know. But this color you can also add to your dark brown to get a really, really nice shade for lightening up areas. But generally what I actually like to do is have a dark umber, but I don't have any right now at this time because they were all out. But this is pretty close. The color is dark brown, so it's, you know, it's close to burnt umber, but to make it a little bit more red, you can get kind of like a dark red color. You don't want to go with light red because it'll make it too light. You just want to make it slightly darker with a red tint to it, so light red is real good. Or dark red, sorry. I am not into it today, yes. It's still early. Okay, you're going to need a pan, of course, water, and you're also going to need a various sizes of brushes, depending on what you like to use, small brushes, big brushes, stuff like that. Let's see here. I'm going to be using a very fine brush. Let's see here. I think I'll go with this one. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to take our white, shake it up, of course. And you're going to add a little bit to your pan. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to fill in the white area on the iris. So here it is here. Let me zoom in. Oh, hold on. Let's move that out of the way. Okay. Ooh, wrong way. Put another cloth. Alright. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to fill in the start of the eye. So we're just making a little circle on the outside of the eye, like that. Okay? And of course, you know, you may have to do this several times to get it pure white, depending on how thick your acrylics are. But this also gives you a idea of where the eye needs to be, and also how large it's going to be. Especially with some different models, the artist, especially on older models, did not make the eyes equal or the same size. So it's always good to do the outlines so that you can look at this and say, well, okay, is the other eye too big? Do I need to make it a little smaller? Is it about right size? So forth. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that one. Now I'm going to move on to the other side here. So I gotta fill in down here. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, so now all we have to do is we have to wait for the white to dry so that the next layer of paint that we put on this horse will be your dark umber or dark brown. Now, I see this with quite a few artists. What they do is that when they take and they put the pupil in, it's different because they put like a blue tinted color, so when you look at it, it shines blue. But the thing is that that's incorrect. A horse's eye will not have that shiny blue color unless it has a direct light shining into it. So like if you're outside and it's dark and you shine a bright light on your cat's eyes, your dog's eyes, you see that glowing eyes in the dark, which a lot of people, they get scared of. And all that is the light is bouncing off the cones and the rod and the eye, and it's all complicated stuff, but that is incorrect. You don't want to do that because that's not proper. That doesn't happen, especially in daytime hours. Especially if you want to be a top model horse artist, I recommend not doing that. You know, other artists will say it's okay, yeah, it's cool, but everybody's got their preferences. But for me, I personally will not do that because it's not a proper response to light. So this is pretty much going to be dry here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our dark brown and I'm going to pour some in my cup. Of course, you don't need a whole lot of these colors, so you don't need to pour on 4 cups of it. Then what we're going to do is we're not going to fill in the whole area brown. We're only going to fill in half of it. So we're going to make like a circle. And of course my paint is very thin, so it fills in the area nicely. And then we're going to go on the other side and do the same thing. And of course it also depends on which way your horse is looking. If your horse is looking, you know, this way, let me zoom out. Whoop, zoom out. If your horse is looking that way, you'd have more white in the eye, in the front of the face, so he'd be looking that way. Now, if he was looking more forward, the whole eye would be brown. So I recommend actually looking at a bunch of pictures on Google, which really helps get an idea of what we're talking about and, you know, get a general idea of how things are going. Alright, so you got your brown filled in, and of course that takes a little while to dry. And what you can do is while that is drying, depending on how many coats you're going to need for this, I'll probably put another coat on. but you can start mixing up your lighter and darker shades of brown to blend in. It's when you put your pupil in there, I try to like make a nice little darker outline around it to blend in with the main color of the eye. It gives it kind of a pop 3D look effect. And then I use a slight bit of the light brown here, and I will kind of shade underneath it to make it look like there is kind of a nice little reflection going on. Maybe he's standing out in the sun, and he's got a very nice coat. So, yeah. Alright, so while that is drying, you can go ahead and mix up your colors. And what I'm going to do while that's drying is I'm actually going to go back and paint in more white on his legs. Alright. Okay. So, it's got to be dry right now. You're going to need to put another layer of brown on top, just like that. And of course probably on the other side as well. I always like to make my acrylics a little bit thinner because they are a little bit easier to work with, especially with shading, blending, and overall just easier to work with when they're not so dang thick and they don't go on smoothly. You can also watch my other tutorials on how to blend acrylics together to make them so they're thinner, more blending with not water but other chemicals in your house that you may have to help get a nicer, smoother effect. So while this is still wet, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to take a little bit of my nice light brown color. You don't need a whole lot. Remember that. I'm going to take it. It's just a tiny little bit on my brush. Very small. And I'm going to go around the bottom of the eye. Now I'm going to go around just the bottom of the eye with this light brown color. It kind of gives that nice look in the eye. And then of course, you know, you will need to do some shading down there. Alright. And of course, you know, this may take several coats depending on how thick it is and how fast it's drying. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Alright, now there are several things that you can also do during the process of when you're putting your white base coat down. Before you color in your main coat color, you can fill it in black if you want to, get your first outline. With that, and then of course when you come on with your brown on top, you would leave a small line around the outer edge, just so that there is like a line there. But I don't really like the dark black for that. It just seems too black for my tastes. So what I do is I actually take a small amount of black, if I can get it out. It'll come out willingly. So I take a small amount of the black, and then I will go and mix in the black with the brown and get this kind of a dark brown, extra dark brown color. And I will go along the outer edge. I did get a little bit too close there on one side, but you can see just like that. I'll have to fill it in with a little bit of white, but you know, for now it's okay. And the reason why I like to do that is because I want to be able to blend it in with the light brown. Because black generally does not like to blend in with a color that it doesn't like brown. So I always like to do that, but it's preference. Sorry if I'm mumbling, guys. I'm still pretty early here. Not quite fully awake, I don't think. So, alright, so there is the eye. So you can see that I added the dark outline to it around the outer side of it. And then, of course, you can always go back with your white if you don't like something. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take our black and we're going to do our pupil. And a horse's pupil, depending on which color eye you're doing, especially brown eyes, is more of an oval shape. With blue eyes, it looks like a brick. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to find the center of his eye, because the pupil really doesn't move. The whole eye does. So with a horse's eye, you won't see it go in and out like our eye. When the light comes and then it contracts and then it expands, doesn't do that too much. Maybe a tiny bit, but not much. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our black and we're going to find the center of our eye and we're going to make an oval shape. Alright. And then a nice thing about acrylics is that they're easy to work with. So, see there? Just like that. And basically you would do the same thing with the other eye, of course. Now, what you can do, if you want, is you could take your darker brown that you use to do your outline around the main horse's eye, and take that and go around the pupil. So you take it, which would be this color here, and then just go around the pupil to give that nice look to it. And then of course, you know, if you just don't like it, then you come back in. Fill it out. But so basically you do that. Now there's other options you can do. You can add a tiny bit of pink to the corner of the eye. It's sometimes I like to do that just because it does show that there is a little bit of different color variation in there. It also shows that the horse is looking more backwards, more behind him. Another thing you can do is you can take a small amount of white, add it to the corner of the eye, and this shows reflection. Now, if you look at some animal eyes, especially when the sun is right on their face, you will see a small little white dot in the corner of the eye. Now, this is my personal preference. You don't have to do that, but it's just kind of how it goes. And just pick and choose what you like, and you'll see many different ways of painting eyes. But this is my way. Eventually we will get around to doing a blue eye. So stick around, and thanks for watching the tutorial. If you got any further questions, let me know. I'm sorry about the extensive thinking. It's still early. So thanks so much, guys. I'll see you later.